Welcome back. You may have seen me using these, I don't know what they call them, dog clamps. These are just homemade ones. They fit into these 16mm holes. Then you can put, items underneath them and clamp them down. So I made these out of F clamps. These are very cheap. These are like $5 or something like that. You know, very sloppy in there. I welded a bit of 16mm round on the end and chopped the top of the F clamp off. And I mean, they do work alright, but I really want to make some decent ones, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. Looking around YouTube, there's lots of people who make these things, and I found one YouTuber who made quite a nice design. So I'll put his link down in the description area, so if you want to go and have a look at the way he's done it, you know, you can have a look at that video. Basically what it entails is I'm not sure what size he's using, but I'll use 16mm round stock for the whole shaft here, and on this round stock we'd use something like 25mm, you know, a short piece that would slide on here. And then of course that would slide up and down, and we'd have a little bit more 16 coming out here, and then another round piece of 25 with a thread in it, M16 thread for the M16 all thread to go through. I don't know if you understood any of that or not, but anyway, I'll just go ahead and make it, and it'll become all clear once I get it finished. So I think I found enough stock here. I've got a long bar of 16mm, and quite a long piece of 25mm as well. So I think I will make 4 of these clamps. I'll do some measurements and sort of roughly work out what sizes I need and cut the pieces to size, and then we'll come back and get started on building these clamps. I've cut the bars off. There's 4 long ones and 4 shorter ones. So the long ones are the ones that go through the hole in the table, and they have a bit of round stock with a hole in it, 16mm hole in it, welded to the end here. These bits are just examples. I'd be using this 25mm stock here, but anyway, that would go there like that. Then you'd have some sort of set screw or release handle or something in here where you could actually clamp the bar up in there. And then there's another piece that would be welded to the end of the shorter piece, and the threaded bar, there'll be an M16 thread in here, and that would go in there, and of course some kind of T-handle, or even these handles are quite nice. It's probably the only decent part of the clamp, so maybe I could reuse those, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's how it works. And to get your height up and down, obviously you clamp with the thread there, but the bar actually goes in the hole, and it can slide right down the hole. So that's your adjustment there, is the whole body of the bar going down the hole. And you just set it up where you want to set it up. You saw me cleaning up these bars on the lathe. I was just sanding off the mill scale. They are 16mm, and they do fit into the bench pretty good, pretty snug fit there on some of them, so that's all good. I've also just turned up the ends here just to make them nice and flat as well. So the next step is to make these pieces here out of this 25mm round stock. Now I'm not sure what dimensions they are, but I don't think it's that critical. This piece here will have a through hole which will take the 16mm so it can slide, and it will have some sort of grub screw or some sort of locking screw there for that. This one here will be drilled out a smaller diameter and then tapped out to M16 to take the thread here. I've finished making up the, I guess, bushing for these parts and the threaded, M16 threaded bushing, I guess, for the ends there. So the next step here is to weld these bushings onto these rods for those four, and weld these threaded parts onto these rods. So I got those bushings and the threaded pieces welded onto the round stock here. So that went okay without too much trouble. Just shimmed it up as you saw and welded it up. Not the best looking welds, but I mean, yeah, they'll be strong enough for sure. So this slides through here quite nicely, there's no problem with that, but it does twist and we need to stop that twist. So the guy that was on the internet that had one, he put a slot in here and then he put a you know, a set screw or something down here to keep it all aligned. So what I might do is I might mill that in the milling machine. Let's mill out a little groove in there, and then we'll have to work out how I'm going to drill these. I should have actually drilled these before I welded them. Oh well, you live and you learn. Here's the setup in the mill. I've got the round stock on parallels. It's probably not the best way to do this, but my V-blocks don't actually fit in here and clamp it tight. The V-blocks are a bit too big for this round bar. So I don't really have any other choice other than to do it like this. To make sure I'm straight up and down, I've got the square and I've got a bit of thread in here. I sort of square off on the round bit here, and then just to check it, I can, the thread is a bit sloppy in there, but I can push it all the way to the left. I get it narrower at the top and push it all the way at the right, and I should have it wider at the top, so sort of splitting the difference, I guess. It's the best I can do with what I've got. So I'm going to mill this down 6mm end mill down to 2mm deep. We'll go along, we'll stop about 15 before the end here, and then we'll see how that goes. So that went pretty well, milled out okay. So now I'll just clean it up with the file. So now we need to drill a hole in the middle of this that lines up with that. So this is the plan. I've got the piece in the vise. I was thinking of putting my V-blocks around there and then having a couple of plates so that I can clamp these together. Like that. And then theoretically it should be all flat on the bottom. Then I can put the whole, as you can see what the problem is here, we've got a big long shaft. Then I can put the whole shaft down the center of my drill press. So that's pretty flat, that's quite good. I think that's perpendicular, so all I need to do now is mark out where the middle is, and then I'm going to use a small 6-inch ruler across here to work out where the center of the curve is by moving it. That should give me about the right place. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take it to the vise, do the ruler trick, and find the center, across the curve, and then I'm going to center pop it, or center punch, and then I can just line the drill up with that. Okay, I think that went pretty well. I've got the hole in the end there. I've turned up an M8 bolt. I mean, this is just, to test it out. It's probably gonna have something a little bit better at the top of these things, I think. There we go. And this bit slides in. And then you can clamp that bolt down and lock it into place. If I lock that bolt down, then it's kind of pretty close, I guess. So I'll go and finish the rest of those off, and then the last thing to do is just to work out what we're going to do with the handle here. whether we just put a pin through there or not. I might actually have some stainless steel M16 thread, which would be nice to use, but then I have to work out how we're going to mount that handle on the end here. I'll get these done and then we'll have a look at that in a minute. I got all the machining done at the top and the bolts are drilled, or the bolt holes drilled here. And thinking about it, right after I drilled the last one, it just occurred to me, why didn't I just stick it in the lathe and it would have drilled, you know, the center hole right down the center there. And I could have tapped it in the lathe as well. So anyway, I like to do things the hard way sometimes. But I have found a piece of stainless M16 all thread. This is just over 400. I think that's about 16 inches long. It's probably about 17 inches long. So I'm only going to get just over 100 for each of these clamps. And I think that's okay because I was measuring up the old clamp, and the old clamp was only about 70 mil anyway, so you know, just under 3 inches I guess. So I need a little bit, depending on what sort of handle I have here. If I make up a handle and the thread goes in with a jam nut on it, then I just need a little bit to go into the handle as well. But I think that should be long enough, so I should get the 4 pieces from this one piece of stainless steel all thread. I've got a little bit further with the clamps. As you saw, I made these round collars, not really sure what you call them, but they screw onto the all thread here, and we'll cross drill these and put the bar in, and of course the nuts will go on the end here, and then this bar will slide in and out, so you know, you can get it into tricky situations where you need to slide it to one area to have some sort of clearance. I'll drill a hole through there, 8mm hole, and then this will be the pin that goes through there. And to stop the pin coming off, I'm just going to weld some nuts on the end here and maybe just grind them round with the grinder. So the nuts have, you know, they're galvanized or zinced, and we need to just take that off before we weld it, otherwise you know, you get some poisonous fumes coming up. So I've got a container here, and I've got some citric acid. It's just what you buy in the supermarket, you know, for cooking. So I'm just going to throw a bit in there. I haven't got a spoon, so I'm just sort of having a bit of a guess. And I've just got some hot water here. And I've only just sort of covered the bottom. Probably about 1/2 inch deep. And that will remove the galvanizing off those nuts, and then they'll be safe to weld on the end of these bars here. So it does give off some smelly odors. I'll put the lid on, but I won't tighten it down. It's just got a little bit of a gap there because it does give off some gas, and if I lock it down it will get kind of high pressure in there. So the other end of these need a little kind of a swivel plate type thing, and I found, well, I haven't found, but I was thinking of making up something similar to this. So it's just a bit of I think it's 25mm round stock, just an offcut, and you know, I'll scallop it out and put a hole in there, and then I'm going to turn this down to a smaller diameter, and then I'll put this on and just peen it over. I think will be the way to do that. And the peening will be inside the scallop, so when this is clamped onto the table or onto the work, it will be pushing on the outside here, so the bit that gets peened over shouldn't be affected with the clamping. That's how the other guy from YouTube did it, the one that I'm putting down in the description there. So I'll try that approach, and I mean, you know, if it doesn't work, we can always just change these threads out and try something different, or chop it off and drill a hole and, you know, put a screw in that bottoms out so that you got a little bit of play here. You know, there's some different ways to do it, I guess. So I have these pieces. I saw me clamping them up in the vise, making them nice and tight before I drill them. So I've got it clamped in the square collet block here, and I'm going to put a pilot hole or center drill in here first. Then I'm going to drill it out to 8mm, and that's the size of our rod. If it's a little bit too tight with the rod, I'll just, you know, take the handle down a little bit so it can fit through the hole nice and slide very easily there. Now I've got the collet block with the nut right up against the vise here, so that's sort of my vise stop. I actually haven't built a vise stop yet for this new vise, so that will be one of the other projects and videos that I'll do later on. But in the meantime, I've just pushed it right back against the jaws, and that's going to give me my origin. This is 25mm long here, so I've come in 12.5mm, so it's pretty much in the center here. Once I have this drilled and the other bits all made up, then when I go to assemble it, I'll put a bit of you know, Loctite on the threads and tighten it up to where it is now, and then that should be fixed there. Okay, that got a little bit hot there. So yeah, stainless steel in the center. I was obviously not going, you know, enough pressure, pushing down on it hard enough, and I think it's just sort of got a little bit hard there. Let me see if I can change that drill bit and try and get through, hopefully. Right, I did finally get through the other one. It took me a couple of goes though. I think the issue I have here is the drill's too fast. So I've turn the speed down a little bit and we'll try it on the second one to see how we go there. And that went much better, to be honest. I can see, you know, a bit of discoloration here and a bit of smoke coming up. I didn't dare stop. I was giving that a good, a good feed, a good pressure feed there. But that cut a lot better than that first hole. Got all the holes drilled without any issues in the end. Just changed that speed a little bit lower and that was fine. The tool does look like it gets heated up a bit more, but I was able to drill the last two without even sharpening the drill and it was still cutting fine. I've seen this on another YouTuber's site, Blondie Hacks. I'll put the link below because he talks about working with stainless steel, and basically you need to go in there, drill it out without mucking around, no rubbing, otherwise it gets hard in there and then you run into problems. The next step is to make the little plates that go on here. So these go through the center, and then they need that little plate so that it can push down onto the table. So I showed you earlier that round disc that I found before, and I had a bit of a play around with this just on a bit of 16mm. This is galvanized. So I just turned down the end of the all thread to 7mm, and I drilled a 8mm hole in the end here. I heated it up and just sort of peened it over, and I mean this is not how it's going to be because it's going to be scalloped out so that that peening doesn't interfere with the bit that goes onto the table. The other thing is I'll probably make it a little bit fatter as well, so I can scallop it out quite a lot and I still have a lot of meat there, so it's still strong. Now this is stainless and I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I presume it'll be the same if you heat it up. It's easy to peen over, but I guess we're going to find out. So let's jump into that and we'll see how we go and if we have a successful part at the end or not. So I've got the 4 swivel clamp pieces, not really sure what they call them, done. I think that's pretty good. That's 10mm thick there, or 3/8. We've got a 8mm hole in there, and we just need to turn this down to 7mm, poke that through, and then peen the end over here. And then hopefully that should be pretty much it. At this stage, these pieces here can be removed. So what I'll do is I'll remove these first, probably clean them up a bit like this. And I've numbered them all. It's got a 1, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the end of the shaft here, on the inside here, it's got a 1 on it as well. So I can put them all back. They're all been clamped up and drilled to fit, so you can't mix them up, otherwise your holes won't be lining up here. We are getting there, and we are almost ready for the assembly, but what I want to do first is I want to hot blue, or I don't know, it's not the chemical blue, it's the heating with the gas torch or the foundry burner, and then quenching in oil. So I want to do that to these parts, and that'll give it a good surface to, you know, sort of reduce the risk of rusting. And once that's done, there's not many steps to go before we can assemble it all up. So I've still got the stainless steel bits with the, you know, the bit that gets forced down onto the table. So that needs to be heated up, that put on, and then sort of punched down and peened over so it doesn't come off. But I want to blue these pieces first because I, you know, don't want to then sort of have this on here and try and blue it while it's on the stainless steel. Otherwise, that may change colour. I'm not sure. I made these bits here. So these bits are the handles that go through here. There's a nut that goes on this end, but I'll put the nut on because the nut's welded on. I've just ground it round here. These are the nuts I had in the citric acid to get rid of the galvanizing. So they get welded on the end, and then I just grind it round with the grinder to make it look good. Yeah, so those will go on probably the last step, and we'll Loctite them in as well. Apart from those few things, we're almost finished. So I'll run through those steps, and then we will do a final assembly of the clamps. So as you can see, I've put the clamps together and the job is pretty much done. So let's just have a quick look at how they get used. So they fit down these holes that I have in my bench. You know, if you need to bring it right down low, you can clamp you know, small things that are low to the table. And I'll tell you what, this handle is really nice, and it's solid and it's very smooth. And I haven't put much pressure on there at all, but that is pretty solid in there. That's not going to move. Now if you have a lot of items or something a lot higher, well then, you know, you can clamp them without going right down to that low point. And again, that is pretty solid. Now, as you saw in the build, I made these clamps with a slot here, and the reason was because my existing clamps, the ones that I've made up, you know, they don't have any adjustment here, and I'm sort of caught in between, you know, two holes. In fact, you know, I don't think it actually overlaps at all, so I can be, I guess, caught short of trying to clamp something and, you know, in this area in the middle of these holes with these original clamps. So that's the reason why we had the adjustability here, and that's just a thumb screw. Loosen it off, bring it out to where you want it, and then you can clamp things a lot further away. And you have that crossover with other holes, so you can basically clamp anywhere on the table now. And again, that can be just moved right in close. You need to clamp something very close to a hole. You can clamp items straight down like this, and you can also clamp items up against the other items. So in that case, you would take the clamping piece out, and that is the same diameter as the main piece, so it fits in the hole. And I'll just adjust this a bit. And then those pieces are now clamped together there. If you had some sort of part that needed to be clamped down to the table and something else needed to be clamped onto it, but you couldn't clamp straight down on that second part. You can see here a little bit of the bluing has come off. That, I think most of that was because of the grinding of these ends here on the grinder, and it was just spinning inside here. But I mean, that's, you know, wear and tear. That's just going to happen with anything that's been blued, I think, in this kind of setup, how we have it. The swivel part is very good. It's on there solid. It's well burred over here, so it's not going to come off. The M16 thread, I think it's M16 by 2. It's very nice, and compared to when you look at, you know, the original clamp and the coarseness of the thread here, this is a very coarse thread, so when you're clamping, you know, it'll get tight quite quickly and you can't really tighten it up much more. But with this finer thread here, once you've clamped it down, you can, you know, you've got more power to, you know, tighten that up a little bit more. So there you have it with this build, which is now complete. I'm pretty pleased with the clamps and the way they perform. So a great improvement for the workshop. Thanks for watching.